Hello, happy Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. It's been a rough week. I don't know what day of the week it is. Alright, let's see. Very excited about today. Dan Chou sounds like an amazing writer. I haven't had the... Let's see if we can get him in here. See if Instagram is cooperative today. And while we're waiting, down here, right there, is a button where you can submit questions if you're interested. Although if you're watching the replay, it's probably weird because there's probably nothing down there. but if you're on live, you can ask questions and we'll read them out loud while we're going. Let's see. So I've also been thinking, I have a couple of authors that I've interviewed that, I mean, I want to read everybody's books, but there's a lot of them. So I think what I might do is kind of make a jar with a list of all of the books that I want to read by all the authors I've interviewed and pick them out that way. Or have you guys vote on which one I'm going to read first. So I'll have to do a poll to see what everybody thinks. I don't know what's going on. There we go.
Hey, it's working.
Yeah.
Look at that.
All right, let me make sure I got everything set up. I think we're good.
Cool.
Nice. You are good luck. I tell you, some days I have good luck, some days I don't. Some days it's 6 tries to get people in here. I don't know.
I mean, technology, it'll surprise you.
I also feel like I have to update Instagram like twice a week to get it running right, which is really annoying, but it is what it is.
We're always trying something new, and they don't tell us, and, then you got to deal with it at the last minute.
Yep. Always fun. Well, it's funny because I didn't know that you couldn't do these from a laptop, and the first couple times it was driving me nuts because I thought there was something wrong with me, that I couldn't find the button live, and then I had other people try it too, and they couldn't get in. So for some reason, you can only do it on a phone, I guess. Well,
I know
I'm sure
Instagram is hostile to laptop. Like, it doesn't want people to use that as a platform, so it would just make sense that they would never turn that on, and it's just like people deal with it. That makes sense to me.
Well, it's funny because I run a second Instagram on my laptop in case like questions come up so I can type. And I notice when I do that, whatever I type, it doesn't show up anyway. So, I ignore it now. So I don't know if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody watching.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan, Daniel Chou, and I am an independent author and trying to be an independent publisher, which means I have to learn another side of it. So I'm working on that. I write primarily science fiction. I've done a little bit of fantasy. And right now I'm in an early part of my career where I'm trying to just, one, learn the craft of writing and editing, which is difficult. But then two, also trying to find, which kind of voice that I really want to have. Yeah. And a couple of the projects that I've had recently have helped me start to discover that. And also, as I dive into communities of writers, they're helping me also identify those things.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite thing about the Bookstagram community and the indie community especially is everybody's so willing to help each other, and you don't really see that in the traditionally published world, and I love that. I didn't know that you were also going into publishing, so are there specific types of authors you're looking to be working with, or what's that going to be like?
All right, so when I realized that it might be a thing I should do is when I had to buy ISBNs for my self-published works. So when I started finding out, you could buy one of them for like $100 or a pack of 10 for $250. I'm like, well, I'm going to buy the pack of 10. Yeah. So then I'm like, am I going to go through 10 ISBNs in a short amount of time? Or what would be better is assist some people with things that I have learned on how to get a book from idea to having a physical copy. Yeah. So that's when I started thinking about contacting a couple friends and family and folks that I have in my writing community and say, I see you're in an early stage. I can assist you now with some things I learned. And I have an ISBN already, so why don't I just throw that one to you and we'll just like get this thing done. Nice. And that's partially because of where my skill set comes from in some of my hobbies, which are about completion of projects. So before I started writing, I was a board game publisher and designer as well.
Wow.
And so that meant taking an idea from a concept all the way out, and then I helped some other people do that. So now that I'm learning to write, I said I probably could just do that too. I now have learned how to use all the software and like the different places online where you have to go and like, buy SBN or publish and figure that out. And then have contacts for proofreading and for substantive editing, all that. So I'm like, I'm just going to leverage that with maybe some select individuals who just need some assistance. So I haven't yet thought of like doing like, creating the website for it and just start publishing for people, but I'm trying to reach out to offer some of the tools I have to my smaller writing group who are like, I like writing as a hobby, but maybe I want to have that physical book at the end. I don't need to sell it to everybody, but it just seems like a mountain too high to climb. Isn't it just fun to write in Microsoft Word? Certainly. But when you want to get to that point, exactly. But when you want to get to that point, if you want to get to that point, you put one on a shelf. I can now get you there at much less pain. And it just seems like partially a service of wouldn't it be silly not to use the skills that I have learned? I have fun doing, like designing the covers and making the websites. I like that. And so it would be sad not to do that. But on the flip side too, it is also exciting to help people get past that finish line, be a part of it in some way, which is what I experienced when I was doing board games. So why not? So that's where I'm in this limited delving of looking at publishing.
Well, that's really cool too, because when I was a kid, I was obsessed with board games. I have game night with my friends all the time, but I used to make my own board games just for fun when I was a kid. I think that is awesome that you turned that into an adult job, because I'm super jealous. What was that experience like?
It's there was a time maybe 2 or 3 summers ago that our local library was looking for folks to do summer camps, like for kids. So I applied to do a summer board game camp for children, and so the kids would come in, and it was like 4 or 5 weeks, and we'd meet twice a week or something like that, and I had a whole curriculum set out for them. So like the first day they came in, and this is where like you and me, I wish there was something like that when I was a kid, and so I said, what board games do you like? And the library has a board game like library section. So I said, go over there to the board games, bring back the ones that you like. And so we did. And then we talked about what made those games tick. So then they realized they said, well, what do I like about it? To understand the science behind it. And then when they started designing board games, the easiest way to start is creating parodies of existing games. Because they did 90% of the work for you. Now make it your own. And so that was exciting. And I just wish that they had that when we were kids. That would have been
Me too. That's why I wound up making my own games. It was always fun. So you're a science fiction and fantasy and romance author, but it looks like you are also really interested in trying to push yourself to try new styles and genres. Is there any genre that you're super nervous to try?
I just posted this the other day, like on Reddit. It was a general question in the authors group. Comedy and humor. As I was writing, like my interest in adventure, which crosses over into fantasy and science fiction, because the pathway to tell a story, adventure, can be either or, and many others. But to be funny, I guess when I think of what makes me laugh, it's hard for me to pinpoint it, and I think that's part of the craft and the what I respect out of like any type of comedian who like it's funny, but like I don't know if I could tell that. I can't deliver it. I don't think I could write it. And so I think in our area where we're writing, yes, there's a delivery and the order of it, but at least don't have to be on stage. But even that's so hard. Like I think humor has to do with time and place. A lot of context, build up to it. A lot of jokes have a build up and then like the twist. And that's already just, when I think about it, so hard. And so that would make me nervous attempting to try it. I do want to try it. And in a new work that I just announced today, I'm doing a bunch of short stories on the novel that I had about Virus Seal to dive more into like the small stories about the small people that we didn't get to see. And in that, I will be delving in all the little areas of writing that have been difficult for me to practice that. But because they'll be short, hopefully, I can be a little bit more experimental. But as I learned a lot today, starting to research how to write short stories, it's a whole other skill set that I don't have that I need to learn. So, yeah, there'll be a lot of experimentation.
And it's funny you say that too, because I had written, the way I started writing was I wrote a whole draft during COVID. And then I thought, well, maybe this is too big. I should start out writing smaller stuff. to see if I'm any good. So I started joining all of these writing competitions, and they're all short stories.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I got assigned comedy, and it was the worst piece of garbage I've ever written in my life. And after I finished, I'm like, no, this is not in my wheelhouse.
So I'm ready to try it, but I have a feeling when I get to that part, because I'm writing my ideas list now, and that's one of them, try something funny. I don't know. So wish me luck.
Oh, good luck. Well, I'm sure it'll be funnier than mine. Mine was terrible. So I was looking over here what your books are about, because one of my favorite things about doing these interviews is I'm discovering authors that I might not have discovered otherwise, and everybody's book sounds amazing. I'm gonna have so much trouble deciding what I'm reading first. But you have 2 out right now, and you have a 3rd one coming out soon, and all of them sound absolutely amazing. So the first one, it says your deputy novel, Vibrant Steel, a young adult adventure about growing up, making friends, and fighting power. So I don't know if you want to give everybody a little bit more info on what that one's about.
Yeah, so Vibrant Steel, we have a young female character, Red, and she comes from a desert society that has been left from our home planet Earth for a long time. So they have no contact, and they just assume that that's long gone. But on her planet, they have these little arches, which is on the cover of the book, that just exudes electricity. When they got there a long time ago, they were there, and they're like, I don't know, natural phenomena, who knows? But they've now built their societies around need electricity. And so our book starts where the arches themselves, her job is to investigate these, and they're always trying to just figure out more about these weird things. She starts to discover some things that are going to change like her planet forever, and the book is written, it takes you to these different places that are all connected through the arch phenomenon. So you meet some different characters that have not met each other, but towards these later half they will meet, and it goes to its conclusion of grand science fiction, aliens, all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
So yeah, that one, as you mentioned about finding power, the very, very deep part of the novel is connected to, gosh, I'm trying to remember the author, which I should have written down. There's a book about children and superpowers. I think it's called Superpowered, like a guide for children. It has 5 different powers that children have that we lose by the time we reach adulthood. And they are covering certain things like knowing my identity. Like children are just like, I am who I am and I don't care. And at some point we tell them, well, you got to be somebody when you grow up, and you lose that wonder. Or like unlimited energy. Is it that they just can never stop being imaginative, or just curiosity? So each of my main characters has one of those as their superpower, and that's how I was able to start writing a personality from there. And then by the conclusion of each of their short stories before they get together, they're trying to grow in that area and show that that you can still have that even when you grow up. So there's a lot of coming to age in their own specific powers.
That's really clever. I like that a lot. Your novella sounds really good too. Candy's Quest, a fantasy rock opera-esque action adventure about a magical rock band guitarist battling the sorceress Queen Morgana to save her family. That has everything you could want in a book.
It's adventure, and I think most distilled core is a shorter one. And so really, as I was learning about short stories today, like going forward with the story, right? Action, action, action. It was written to be that way. Yeah. So they show up, play music, which the power of rock and music is what defeats the enemies. And there's a lot of music involved because as you read the novella, it prompts you to play. It would be like a movie. So in there, to avoid copyright issues, I can cite songs that are in the public domain, but I can't like list lyrics or anything more than that. So it'll be like, play, this song by Mariah Carey. So if you'd like to, you can just get on YouTube, play the song, kind of read it at a steady pace. It's supposed to go at the arc of the music for slower readers, because I'm a slower reader. So it has that, but it's fine to just read by itself. It just adds a little extra oomph. Yeah. Because I wanted to try melding those two to give a cinematic experience to writing.
That's really fun. It kind of reminds me of, what is it? I think Pink Floyd has an album that goes along with Wizard of Oz or something like that.
Yeah. There's a movie, and then Daft Punk has one too, an experimental film that goes along with one of their albums. But that one's very loosey-goosey, because I guess if you don't listen to the music, the movie makes 0 sense. But even together, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. That's what I heard about that one.
That's funny. Well, I have to say, so those first 2 sound amazing, but I think the one that sounds the most up my alley, and that I was reading the blurb and going, I've never read anything like this before, and I can't wait for it. Your next release, The Martian Connection, romance science fiction novel about a space lieutenant aboard a research vessel with a high sex drive but way too much stress, all the while fighting with her once Academy sweetheart turned pain in the ass scientist companion.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds amazing. How did you come up with this idea, and what can you tell us about it?
So this is when, you know, in COVID times, where a lot of the writing started coming about, and I said, you know what I haven't done? Romance. So I started reading a number of romance pieces recommended from my personal writing group. There was a Jane Austen one.
Not my thing.
And they're like, you know, light romance there, you know, because I was looking for everything between light romance, where it's a part of something, to like full. And that's when I found out that romance appeared easy from the outside. If you just take a look, like scrolling through Smashwords front page, like if there's just so much, should it not be easy? But like riding a bicycle and then joining the, you know, X Games to do 5 360s in the air, there is a difference, right? You see plenty of people riding the bike, but you don't see that many people in there. So that's when I found out, after reading good examples, that there is a formula, which is usually how I break down any of this. I try to determine the part leading to a payoff. All of that can be done well or poorly, and so that's where this book was the best of what I could learn from all of those in a genre, science fiction, that I would like to see more of.
Yeah, that's true, because that's kind of, mine is kind of romance sci-fi, but it's funny because you don't see a whole lot of that. You either get romance or sci-fi. There are a few. I've read some, like my brain just went dead. God, who's the Robert Heinlein. I love Heinlein. His books are very sexist because they're old, but I still love his books, and he does have some romance and sci-fi, and I just love that, and it's not very common anymore. So I'm trying to bring it back.
So that book, I'm sure people will find this interesting. The way that the timeline of it being written. So the first draft that I wrote, which was, gosh, it had been 2 years now ago when I first wrote it. It was maybe about 40,000 words. Yeah. And I read to my wife, and I'm like, what do you think? This is the first draft. You know, nobody had seen it. I was just like, late night writing, here it is. And I asked her, so what do you think? Because I was like, I dictated out loud. And she's silent, looks at me and says, what do you want me to say? And I said, well, I want to know, like, did I write a romance novel? She said, you wrote a porn. I said, no, that's not. Oh. And as I go on to social media and I'm sharing with my writing group this, and they're like, well, that, you know, that's okay, like, you know, that's legitimate. I'm like, no, I'm not saying it's illegitimate. I'm not saying people should be writing smut with 7 chili peppers. What I'm saying is that's not what I intended to write. I wanted a, you know, something with substance that also had romance, but no, that I didn't understand it yet. So then I was returned to more suggestions from my group, which were really great, and determined, you know, certain percentages, like, you know, 30% to 40% smut could be fun, but you cannot go more than half, because then it's not it's not the romance novel that I think could be more widely distributed. Right? There's a size area for what I wrote, and that's not where I was going.
For me, it depends. Like, I feel like if you're doing a sci-fi book, it should be mostly sci-fi. But I feel like a lot of those romance books, I'm not big into the cheesy romance, so when it's mostly smut, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, right? Like, okay,
it depends on the other genre.
Their dialogue is canned. Give me the good stuff, right? And then that has its place. Absolutely.
So now, it looks like right now your books are available on KU. I think Vibrant Steel is only available till the end of August on KU. Right.
I think they both went at the same time, and this is my first time experimenting with KU. So we're going to see how Kindle Unlimited works, you know, the whole reads, that whole kind of platform. Before that, like, Candy's Quest had a earlier first and second edition before I released the current one, which is third. So that book came out, I think it was around 2016, which was my first try into just writing. It really didn't do a lot of publishing on that. It was just like, it was available. And Vibrant Steel is the one where I went full in, and it's now like you can actually buy it and publish it. So with that one, I went, as they would say, wide versus specific. And it was okay. So now I'm just trying to see what this looks like. And so by August, I'll sit down and look at all the numbers and decide, do I want to keep releasing things by KU or just go wide again? And I'm not sure yet. Writing is not sustaining my entire life. It's the side hobby. And so I'm just more interested in, like, finding that audience, which is something I thought about literally this morning. Any morning you could get up and somehow your audience could just find you.
Yeah.
And once you have them, then you write for them, and then it's great. But I don't know, there's a lot of luck involved in authorship
Yeah.
and writing. You do your best to let people know you're here, but it's, and this is from my other line of work, which is I work in higher education, in like the residence halls, the dorms for the
Oh,
kids, and I tell
cool.
the students who advise, run programming for all the kids, we give them money and they do all these fun programs. And they come in and they're like, nobody came to my, paint and pour by the numbers Bob Ross program. I spent, 5 hours getting the videos, and we got all the little easels, and I set it all up in the dorm lobby, but then nobody came, and they're really sad about it. And I say, I hear you, but I want you to know that you offered an opportunity to people, and it was there. And while that didn't catch them that time, there's 1,000 reasons. They were busy, they couldn't make it, they had another commitment, they didn't see your poster. It's almost impossible, but I want you to know that by offering the opportunity, and they're going to do activities for them later. And so in the same way, when I think as a writer, like if I could produce a number of pieces and put them there, I may have my person today. And so at some point,
Yeah.
I may stumble upon them, and then when that happens, I just have to be ready. So I guess sometimes I tell new writers, like, you want to see the views, you want to see the sales, but I guess it depends on what your ultimate goal is. And if you're more like me, you like to create, then we kind of have to be comfortable with just waiting. If you are looking for sales, then there's just other things that I don't particularly do, but you should probably be doing a lot more of. And so keep going for those things that looking in those areas for your audience, wherever they are.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that too, because one of my favorite answers of yours, I ask everybody what's the hardest part of the writing process, and you were the only one that said this answer, which I find crazy because I know that everyone has this trouble. And you had mentioned that it was finding ARC readers and writing marketing materials, and trying to compare yourself to other authors and making that link. And I know that has to be difficult. And I know how many authors have reached out to me to read their book, and I'm amazed that nobody else said that. So I'm kind of curious if you have like a method to how you handle that.
Sure. What I've been learning so far, yeah. So for the ARC readers part, I've been trying Booksprout right now. I know there's Booksire, there's a bunch of opportunities. I'm trying Booksprout. It's affordable, and so giving it a shot. I'm getting a couple reviews from there, so it's not bad. Both Vibrant Steel and the Marcia Connection have used Booksprout. And so it's a platform that'll allow you to basically set everything up. I know on Reddit and some of the other communities, there are some groups, as I'm learning, there's some moral gray area to artists just grading books for the ARC, where it's not like that I wanted to read your book, it's that I'm obligated to do it because we're in a deal together to leave reviews. So that's a weird thing that I haven't quite decided how I feel about it, even though I have not yet participated. But yeah, so right now I'm just leaving that aside. So I use Booksprout, and one way that I think that works well is that people say in the review, I received this book, through that, and so people could take that as at face value. So I feel that the structure that's given, as far as especially if you're nervous about cold contacting a bunch of people, let Booksprout or one of the services kind of introduce you to that. That's what people are there for. So that's been easy to get into and affordable. And then when it comes to marketing and getting out there, I guess, so if you have people who can review anything you want to send out for marketing, whether it's a picture ad, an ad video, or a blurb or something, you want as many people as possible to look at it before it goes live. And that includes A and B testing and revisions and revisions and revisions. And at some point, you want people to say, a quick glance at this thing told me what's going on, which is one of the, the goals of marketing is, yeah, you want to convince people to do it, but they also just have to know because you're looking for your audience. One product, Vibrant Steel, will not appeal to every reader, but there are readers who want a science fiction adventure about young people. And so how do I make an ad that doesn't tell what the book is about, but tells those people what it's about, and so they're hooked? And you can only get that either by hiring a multinational marketing firm or by doing revisions and asking people who are in that market to keep giving you feedback over and over. So I think if you want to get good advertising pieces, you got to find your group, and then if they're your friends who like your material, and just have them join you together. And you may think that my first attempt at the ad is really great. Probably it's fine, but it can be better. You need feedback. Everybody needs feedback.
That's true. And that's something that I haven't thought about, because I see a lot of people, they'll make reels and things like that. I don't know how many of them are really going out and getting feedback on that. So that's, that's something I hadn't considered. I also saw you did something really interesting. You had crowdfunding thing going on for Vibrant Steel that was funded in just 3 hours, which is amazing. So what was that experience like?
So in board games, I did crowdfunding. I think there were 2 campaigns. One was a children's game about raccoons, and then the second one was a war game, like kind of like Risk mixed with Settlers of Catan. And so for those 2, I knew how to use Kickstarter, how to like run a campaign. And so when I was looking at publishing and I was figuring out, have people done this? It's not common because a lot of people aren't familiar with using Kickstarter. I think there's way more users than there are Kickstarter, people who run it. So I was pitching it out there, and some people are like, well, I guess why not just do regular pre-order? I'm like, that's the thing. Like, I have 2 things. One, I'm still looking for my audience, so why not just chuck it into Kickstarter? They do books, so someone might stumble upon it. Why not? And then 2, there's a hype train about kickstarting. Like just, oh, look at the number go up. I'm going to tell my friends. Look at all these funny pictures on a page. Ooh, and updates. And I liked that. When board games were happening, there was kind of a snowball effect. People get excited.
Yeah.
You could connect with people as it's going. You offer rewards, which are kind of fun. And so I just wanted to return to that. And so while I didn't have to do it that way, I could have just pre-ordered on my website, put your email in, whatever, run a shop page. It was fun, and creating all the graphics and the behind-the-scenes stuff, and everybody was writing together, and then the books came in the mail and mail them out. Everybody was getting them at the same time, like exciting. So I'll say, and this is from other creators too, running a Kickstarter campaign is like a full-time job for about 30 days. So while you do it, so I'm home at night and doing the social media, responding, and all that. But it can be fun if you like it. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I liked how it came out.
Yeah, I've always been interested in it. I've participated in some, but I've never ran my own. So that's definitely something to look out for too. So what are you working on now?
I have that, it's called Tales from the Vibrant Lands. It'll be the short story collection, and I'd like to get that out like a first volume by September, maybe 3 or 4 pieces in that short one, and then over time create a couple volumes, which will help me expand specific areas of my craft. I have an indie bookstore fair happening, or indie author fair at a bookstore cafe in September. So that's where I'd like to produce it, and it would be free. It's going to be a free volume. So people could come to my table, say, hey, I'm from the area and I write, here's some books, also take one of these, and it's free, short stories. So that would be my goal, to create a free market. What was that?
Where are you doing that?
This one's in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It's a coffee shop, I think, called Groundswell. Which makes sense because, grounds, coffee grounds. So there's a small independent, I just discovered this weekend, is a small independent group in Iowa of independent authors. And so they're mostly based in Des Moines, in the capital, but now they're going to come out to Cedar Rapids for the first time, which is about a 2-hour drive. They're going to host one for authors in this area. So I'm going to get in on the inaugural event where I get at my own little table. It's fairly reasonable. I'm creating banners for my table because I've done this in the past with board games, set up like sales tables. So I'm just going to replicate that. I got a bunch of copies and see what happens.
Nice.
At a minimum, it'll be cool to meet all the other authors in this area because I don't know a lot of them. Most of my connections are just vaguely on the internet through these groups. But just to know the local ones could be really exciting.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I don't know how you balance all this because it sounds like you do a lot of writing. You're going to be doing publishing stuff. You also have a lot of marketing going on, the Kickstarters, and you also have a full-time job, like you mentioned, in higher education. So how do you balance that? How do you find the time to write?
I think that's what my wife wants to know too. So we're finding all this time. I think it's my primary hobby, and usually I'm doing only one at a time. So while I have several of them, for example, there's a couple board game projects. So right now we're on ice as I explore this. And then maybe, for a month, somewhere during the year, I might return, polish a board game piece up and put that back. But really, it's one at a time. And so instead of going to the bar or partying, this is what I'm doing. I come home, I write or design something or play board games with friends or read something new. I also don't have children, and so I'll just tell you right off the bat, there's a lot of time saved there. And so, you make certain choices. You try to build your life around having that kind of time to have that hobby. And then you have to also remember your family on occasion and give them their time. That is very important. So yeah, it's my full-time hobby. And so I don't have a lot of like random ones. I have like very specific ones, and then I just go like very deep into them. So that includes weekend time. I think spending, you know, like an hour a night on the hobby. When I really need to get something done, I'll spend a minimum of an hour a night. So that lets you know you have dedicated time for that. And also when it's not that hour, you should go do something else. So I'm in that point right now with my deadline set September that I'm trying to at least dedicate an hour a day. And sometimes you go longer. On a weekend, you get into it.
Yeah.
But it keeps me at least, it keeps me creating something.
Yeah. So now I know you're working across multiple genres, but it seems like you're mostly drawn to sci-fi and fantasy. What pulled you into those genres?
Science fiction, I've always been interested in reading it. And so I'm interested in exploring stories or concepts that maybe was a piece of something that I read, but they didn't really get into. So I just want to create that space for it. And I really enjoy a lot of the 1950s to 70s kind of paperback classics, which there's a bunch of them behind me here where you get it, like weirdo bookstores.
Row here.
Yeah, yeah. So I love collecting those and reading those. And what I like about some of the older stuff, the hard sci-fi, is that a lot of the things that they write are plausible. They're plausible for the 50s and maybe plus 20 years and magic science, really plausible. So I try to do the same, where like my things are plausible if you take some of our current technology and stretch it a bit.
Yeah.
However, like we're just not there yet, and that sort of adds some of the science fiction part of it. So that inspires me. When I get to fantasy, what I really like is I like the wonder of it. And so like in the first fantasy one, the Candy's Quest book, just surprising people with like magic and the action, and like that's really fun, like mixing those things together, explosions and whatnot, that's really fun. And so that's what attracts me from those two. I have not yet combined the two, though I have seen it done. For example, I play some video games. Here's one that I don't think people realize is science fiction fantasy. The really popular Legend of Zelda Breath of the